Hey class, I am back, literally, because I just finished recording a 10-minute video and then realized the microphone wasn't on. So, take two. Just my luck. So, new technology. We mentioned machine guns in World War One, but we also have the first use of tanks. We have the first use of submarines and the use of poison gas. Now, poison gas is currently banned in warfare. There's actually rules of warfare, but not when it was first invented. It was invented by the Germans, used by both sides, and if a poison gas canister came over into your trench, you better have your mask on or get your mask on quick. Otherwise, you might have your skin burned, like seriously burned. You could go blind. It could choke your airwaves, and you would just choke to death because you couldn't breathe, and because it like inflamed your throat. Hitler got gassed, and he survived it, but a lot of people say that he went. Well, he was already kind of crazy, but a lot of people say that it got even worse after he was gassed in World War II. Another interesting thing about Hitler and poison gas is that the Hitler mustache became popular. What we know as the Hitler mustache became popular in World War One. Back then, a lot of guys had mustaches, and in the beginning of the war, when they would put their masks on. Now, not every mask looked like this. This is just one particular country. I'm not sure which one, but for a bunch of the masks, if the way it went on, if you had a mustache, it wouldn't like seal the mask, and so some poison gas could sneak in. So what a lot of guys did was they shaved the sides of their mustache and just left a little bit in the middle underneath the nose, because then the gas mask would fit on perfectly, and hence the Hitler mustache, which was popular from World War One up until World War Two, when Hitler made it really unpopular. And pretty much no one's had a Hitler mustache ever since then. He ruined an entire look, which was created because of poison gas. So maybe not a great mustache to begin with. Okay, with tanks, 1916 is our first use of tanks. This could help because remember we talked about no man's land and how you're dead if you enter it. Well, if a tank crosses no man's land, a machine gun is not going to take down a tank. And so the soldiers would walk behind the tanks and it would provide them cover. So you'd say, oh wow, you can get the other trenches this way. Well, if the other side has tanks too, then we still have a stalemate. And that is exactly what happened. Talked about machine guns already. We'll move on. And oh yeah, I didn't mention this before. I'm going to skip through a bunch of this stuff. I want to wrap up World War One today. The stuff I'm skipping through is stuff that either we've already covered a bit, or you will definitely learn in your junior year history class, because when we talk about the U.S. in World War One, we come back to a lot of things. Why am I skipping all this stuff? Well, it just dawned on me we're losing a full week of classes for world history, which stinks because this is like, I love this class, but I don't make the schedule. So on Friday we have Gratitude Day, no classes, as far as I know of, and then we have Monday and Tuesday off. So I'm not going to see you again till next Friday, which I believe is the 29th. And then we have just 1 week of school after that. I want to make sure we get into World War II and maybe even beyond. Maybe I'd like to get into the Cold War. But, we're just going to do our best. We have a situation to deal with. We're going to do our best with what we got. And also the other thing, anything that you miss out on, just like with this stuff I'm skipping here today, in your junior year, World War II is a big part of it, and so is the Cold War. So it's not like some of this stuff you won't get to learn until you go to college. You will definitely get it in junior year. Okay, submarines are called, nicknamed U-boats. They are invented by the Germans, and it comes from the German word Unterseeboot, which means under sea boat. Just change a couple letters around because German's really close to English. Undersea boat or submarine. Now the British Navy had been dominating the seas for the last few hundred years, but with a U-boat you can sneak up on a British naval ship. They have no idea you're coming, and you can torpedo it and sink it. And the Germans use this to great advantage. We've talked about stalemate. Just take the size of the numbers of deaths in this war. One Battle of the Somme, 1 million soldiers were killed in one battle. To put that in perspective, if we go back 70 years prior to this time period to 70? No, more like 60, whatever. If we go to the U.S. Civil War, the bloodiest battle was Gettysburg, which took place over 3 days. And I believe the grand total of casualties at Gettysburg was around 60,000. At the Somme, 1 million. That's just beyond. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And they're not making any progress, which is why World War I think is the dumbest war ever, because so many people died for really little reason other than countries being mad at each other and wanting to flex their muscle. And spoiler alert, the effect that World War I has on world history is that it sets up World War II, which is going to be the bloodiest conflict in human history where the most people die. We said 40 million total died in World War I. The number for World War II is closer to 70 million. I know, this is so cheery, but hey, it is what it is. The Eastern Front, again, just like the Western Front, it's a major stalemate. And so we're not going to spend too much time here. But you can see the red line, this is Germany, their front line. And this is where Russia starts out, really, at the beginning of the war. And no one really makes it past any of these things in 4 years of fighting. Well, technically, 3 years of fighting, because surprise, surprise, something happens. Oh, cool, interesting. There are still areas of the Eastern Front where people are still finding bones from World War I soldiers, because the battles were so devastating and you couldn't bury the people, and there's bones and helmets and anything metal would have been preserved. Old guns and stuff like that, because there was so much death on the Eastern Front. So Russia's getting hammered by the Germans. Skip this. And again, Russia had the largest military, but poorly trained. And by poorly trained, I mean, you're in the military, and 5 seconds ago you were a farmer. They just gave you a gun, maybe a uniform, maybe not, and trained you as much as they possibly could, but you kind of got thrown into battle. Now, Russia at this point had not industrialized. Like the Industrial Revolution had not hit Russia. It started in Britain in the late 1700s. By 1915, not there in Russia. So they don't have a lot of railroads. So it takes a long time for the troops to move. They don't have much capacity for producing weapons. Mostly they would get them from other countries. They'd buy them. Now the German U-boats are blocking all access into Russia through waterways. And so the Russian military, they're just throwing people at the Germans and only holding them back because they have almost unlimited numbers of people to throw at the German army. And the death toll mounts like crazy. And this is going to keep happening until... Dun, 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 dun. Oh, this would be perfect if I could add the communist national anthem. Perfect opportunity. Because the communist revolution happens during World War I, specifically called the Bolshevik Revolution. This is a picture of a man named Vladimir Lenin. He was a communist who had been kicked out of Russia many years earlier. He was exiled and he lived in Germany. And he was exiled because he wanted to overthrow the Russian government. The Germans decided during the war, you know what's a great idea? This guy that wants to ruin the Russian government, let's just send him back into Russia. And that's exactly what they did. They put him in a train, made it super secret, got him to the border, smuggled him over, and it was like, Vladimir, do your thing. And he did exactly that. We're going to have to skip through a little bit here. We're going to have, yeah. Hey, it's in the book if you want to read about it. That's all I can say right here. But the war goes global. Again, troops from all these areas. Again, we talked about Japan capturing German territories in the Pacific, colonies in Africa. There are battles everywhere. Okay. Bolshevik Revolution. So March 1917, we have civil unrest, so the people were very upset, probably because after 3 years of war, so many people have died. The Tsar is forced to step down, and at this point, this is when Vladimir Lenin swoops in with his Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks were the group of people that he had that wanted to make Russia a communist state. So November 1917, he leads the communist revolution in Russia. And then just for good measure, to make sure there wasn't some kind of rally to get the royal family back, he has the entire royal family executed. And then in March, with Lenin in control, he's like, hey, Germany, by the way, A, thanks for sending me back here. I just overthrew the government, and I'm in charge now. And B, let's just stop fighting. How about that? You don't want to fight us, do you? We don't want to fight you. Okay, so we sign a deal, and Russia drops out of the war. And now Germany can focus exclusively on the Western Front. And they'd been holding their own against the British and the French, but now maybe they can finally make some progress. Well, they would have, except when Russia left, another country joined, and that was the United States. And they're going to fight on the Western Front. Okay. That's going to be it for this video. Yeah, we talked about communism already. We'll get to it more in your junior year too. And again, well, one just little fun fact about World War I from the American point of view. The U.S. had wanted to stay out of the war, the majority of the population. This is called isolationism, where you don't want to get involved. And President Wilson, who was president when the war started, he kept saying, no, we're not getting involved, we're not getting involved. George Washington said to, don't get involved in European wars. We've been good with that ever since, and we're just not doing it. And this is his campaign slogan in 1916. He has kept us out of the war. So people were basically voting to not go to war. Within a month after his inauguration, his second inauguration as president, he asked Congress to declare war. He had his reasons. There are 4 main reasons. We're going to cover these in detail during your junior year, but it is kind of ironic that the president, whose main thing was anti-war, ended up taking the country to war. Okay, that's it for this video, and we're going to come back with propaganda.